Sarah Jones was tired. The clock on the wall of her small diner showed it was almost 11 at night. Her feet hurt from standing all day. Her back ached from bending over tables. But this was her life now. Ever since her husband Tom left her 3 years ago, she had been working hard to keep the diner running and to take care of her teenage son, Jake. The Bell Road Diner sat on the edge of town. It was not fancy, but it was clean. The food was good and cheap. Most people in town knew Sarah. They knew she was a hard worker. They knew she was raising Jake alone. Some people felt sorry for her, but Sarah did not want anyone to feel sorry for her. She was proud of what she had built. Tonight the diner was almost empty. Only one customer remained. He sat in the corner booth by the window. The man was big. He had a thick beard and long hair tied back. His arms were covered in tattoos. He wore a black leather vest with patches on it. The large patch on his back said, "Hell's Angels." Sarah knew this was a motorcycle gang. Some people in town were scared of bikers. But this man had been coming to her diner for the past month. He was always quiet and polite. He always left a good tip. Sarah walked over to his table. "Can I get you anything else? We close in 15 minutes." The man looked up from his coffee. "No thank you, ma'am. Just the check when you have time." Sarah nodded and went to get his bill. Outside, rain was starting to fall. She hoped Jake remembered to close his bedroom window. The boy was 16 now and spent most of his time with his friends or playing video games. Sarah missed the days when he was little and wanted to spend time with her, but she understood that he was growing up. Sarah was about to bring the bill to the biker when bright lights flashed outside. 2 police cars pulled up in front of the diner. Their red and blue lights filled the small restaurant. Sarah watched as 3 officers got out and rushed toward the door. The bell over the door rang as they pushed inside. They were wet from the rain, and they looked angry. The tallest officer, a man named Davis, looked around. When he saw the biker in the corner, his face got even harder. "We got a call about trouble at a gas station down the road," Officer Davis said loudly. "Someone matching your description was causing problems." The biker slowly put down his coffee cup. "I have been sitting here for the past hour, officer." Officer Davis walked closer to him. "Stand up. Put your hands where I can see them." Sarah felt her heart beat faster. Something was not right. She had been working all evening. The biker had been there for at least an hour, maybe more. He had been sitting quietly, drinking coffee, and looking at his phone. He had not caused any trouble. "He is telling the truth," Sarah said. She stepped between the officers and her customer. She was not a tall woman, but she stood straight and looked Officer Davis in the eye. "He has been here since I put out the fresh pie. That was more than an hour ago." Officer Davis frowned at her. "Ma'am, step aside. This does not concern you." Sarah did not move. "It does concern me. This is my diner. You cannot harass my customers for no reason. He has not done anything wrong." The officers looked surprised. No one spoke for a moment. The biker sat very still, watching everything. Sarah could feel her hands shaking, but she kept them at her sides. She did not back down. "Do you know who you are defending?" another officer asked. "This man is a Hell's Angel." Sarah crossed her arms over her chest. "I know who I am defending. A paying customer who has done nothing wrong in my diner. Unless you have proof he did something, or a paper saying you can arrest him, I need to ask you to leave." The air in the diner felt heavy. No one moved. Officer Davis looked at Sarah with cold eyes. His hand rested on his gun belt. The other officers stood behind him, waiting. "You are making a mistake," Officer Davis said to Sarah. "People like him bring trouble. We are just doing our job." Sarah did not back down. "Your job is to protect people who follow the law. This man has been sitting here drinking coffee and eating pie. That is not a crime." The biker stayed in his seat. His face was calm, but his eyes were watchful. He did not speak or move. He let Sarah do the talking. Officer Davis looked from Sarah to the biker and back again. His face turned red with anger. "Fine. Have it your way." He pointed at the biker. "But we will be watching you." The officers backed toward the door. Before they left, Officer Davis spoke again. "You should be more careful who you let into your diner, Ms. Jones. Some customers are not worth the trouble they bring." The bell rang as they pushed through the door. Through the window, Sarah watched them get back into their cars. The red and blue lights turned off. The police cars drove away slowly, like they were still watching. When they were gone, Sarah let out a long breath. Her hands were shaking. She had never stood up to the police before. It scared her, but she knew she had done the right thing. The biker stood up. He was very tall, over 6 feet. His leather vest had patches and pins all over it. Up close, Sarah could see that he was older than she first thought. Maybe in his 40s. His beard had some gray in it. "Thank you," he said in a deep voice. "Not many people would stand up to cops for someone like me." Sarah went back behind the counter. "I do not judge people by how they look or what they wear. I judge them by how they act. You have always been polite when you come in here." The biker nodded. "My name is Ray Miller. What you did means a lot." He took out his wallet and put some money on the table. "The cops were right about one thing, though. Standing up for me might bring you trouble." Sarah shook her head. "This is my place. I decide who stays and who goes." Ray smiled for the first time. It made his face look younger. "The world needs more people like you, Ms. Jones." He zipped up his leather jacket. "I will not forget what you did." Sarah watched as Ray walked out into the rain. His motorcycle was parked at the side of the diner. It was big and black with chrome that shined even in the dark. He got on, started the engine, and rode away. Sarah locked the door behind him and turned the sign to closed. She was tired, but she still had to clean up before she could go home. As she wiped down tables, she thought about what had happened. Had she done the right thing? What if the police gave her trouble now? She was a single mom trying to run a small business. She could not afford problems with the law. But deep down, she knew she would do the same thing again. Her father had taught her to stand up for what was right, even when it was hard. He had owned this diner before her. "Treat everyone the same until they give you a reason not to," he always said. Sarah finished cleaning and turned off the lights. She got into her old car and drove the short distance to her small house. All the lights were off except for the glow of a TV in Jake's room. She was too tired to check on him. Tomorrow was a school day. She would talk to him in the morning. As she fell into bed, Sarah wondered if Ray would come back to the diner. She wondered if the police would cause problems for her. She wondered what her father would think of what she had done. Then she was too tired to wonder about anything more, and she fell asleep. Sarah had no idea that her simple act of standing up for a stranger was about to change her life. 2 days passed. Sarah did not see Ray or the police. The diner was busy with the normal customers. Old men who came for breakfast and coffee. Workers from the factory down the road who came for lunch. Families who stopped for dinner on their way home. Jake helped at the diner after school. He was tall like his father, with dark hair that fell in his eyes. He was a good boy, but quiet since his father left. He worked hard washing dishes and taking out trash. "Mom, did something happen the other night?" Jake asked as they worked. "Mrs. Wilson came in this morning and said she heard you had trouble with the police." Sarah sighed. News traveled fast in small towns. "It was nothing, Jake. Just a misunderstanding." But it was more than that. Sarah could feel eyes on her when she went to the store. She heard people stop talking when she walked into the post office. The town was talking about her. Sunday morning was always busy at the diner. Sarah got there early to start cooking. Jake came in later to help serve. By 10 in the morning, every table was full. Sarah was making pancakes when she first heard it. A low sound, like thunder far away. But the sky was clear blue. The sound grew louder. It was the roar of many engines. Motorcycle engines. People in the diner stopped eating. They looked up. They looked at each other. The sound was very loud now. The glasses on the tables shook. The windows rattled. Sarah came out from the kitchen. Jake stood by the door with wide eyes. Outside, motorcycles were pulling into the parking lot. Not just a few. Dozens. Then more. Big bikes. Loud bikes. Bikes with riders wearing leather and helmets. "Mom," Jake said. His voice was scared. "Mom, what is happening?" Sarah did not know. She stood frozen as more and more motorcycles arrived. They filled the parking lot. They lined up along the road. There were too many to count. 50. 100. More. The riders got off their bikes. Most were men, but some were women. They all wore leather vests with patches. Many had the same patch that Ray had worn. Hell's Angels. But there were other patches too. Other motorcycle clubs. The customers in the diner were scared. Some got up to leave. Others moved away from the windows. A woman held her small children close. The door opened. Ray walked in. Behind him came other bikers. They were big men with beards and tattoos. They looked around the diner with calm eyes. "Morning, Sarah," Ray said with a small smile. "Hope you do not mind, but I told some friends about your place. We heard you make the best breakfast around here." Sarah could not speak for a moment. Then she looked past Ray at the sea of motorcycles outside. There had to be 200 bikers out there. Maybe more. "Well," she finally said, finding her voice, "I hope you are all hungry. Jake, we are going to need more coffee." Ray smiled wider. He turned to the other bikers and nodded. They began to file in. They were polite. They waited their turn. They took off their hats and helmets when they came inside. Soon the diner was full of bikers. They sat at tables. They stood against walls. They filled every space. The regular customers looked scared at first. Some left quickly, but others stayed, watching with big eyes. Jake moved through the crowd with coffee pots. His hand shook, but the bikers were nice to him. They called him sir and young man. They made space for him to pass. Sarah went back to the kitchen. Her mind was racing. What did it mean? Why were they here? Was it good or bad? She did not know, but she knew how to cook. And these people were hungry. For the next hour, Sarah made more food than she had ever made before. Pancakes, eggs, bacon, toast. The bikers ate and talked and laughed. They left big tips. They were the most polite customers she had ever had. A police car drove slowly by the diner. Through the window, Sarah saw Officer Davis looking at all the motorcycles. His face was hard, but he did not stop. He drove away. By noon, Sarah was tired but happy. The diner had never been so busy. Every table was full. Bikers stood along the walls waiting for seats. They were patient and kind. When food came, they said thank you. When they left, they cleaned up their tables. Jake moved through the crowd with new confidence. At first he had been scared of the bikers, but they treated him with respect. They called him by his name. They asked about school and sports. Now Jake smiled as he poured coffee and cleared plates. In the kitchen, Sarah worked faster than ever. She was running low on food. The eggs were almost gone. The bread too. But she kept cooking. A few of the bikers even came to help. They washed dishes and chopped onions. They knew their way around a kitchen. Outside, more motorcycles kept coming. The parking lot was full. Bikes lined both sides of the road for half a mile. Cars slowed down to look. Some people from town drove by again and again, staring at all the bikers. Around 1 in the afternoon, Ray came into the kitchen. He watched Sarah flip pancakes for a minute. "Your food is as good as they say," he said. "The word has spread." Sarah wiped sweat from her face. "Word about what?" "About what you did. Standing up to the cops for one of us." Ray looked serious. "That does not happen often. Most people see the vest and the patches and get scared. They think we are all bad." Sarah flipped more pancakes. "I told you. I judge people by how they act, not how they look. Ray nodded. The clubs respect that. And we pay our debts. Sarah was about to ask what he meant when Jake burst into the kitchen. His face was red and his eyes were wide. "Mom," he said, "the roof is leaking again, right over table 7. Sarah felt her heart sink. The roof had been leaking for months. She did not have money to fix it. She had been putting buckets out when it rained. But today was sunny. The leak must be from the pipes. "I will get a bucket," she said, feeling tired. One more problem she could not afford to fix. But Ray held up his hand. "No need for a bucket. We can fix it." He turned and called to a big biker with a gray beard. "Hey, Wrench, roof leak over table 7. Can you take a look?" The man called Wrench nodded. He put down his coffee cup and followed Jake out of the kitchen. 3 more bikers went with him. Sarah looked at Ray. "They do not have to do that." Ray smiled. Wrench was a contractor for 20 years before he joined the club. He knows roofs, and pipes, and just about anything else that breaks. An hour later, the leak was fixed. Wrench and his friends had found the problem. A pipe in the ceiling had a small crack. They fixed it with parts from their saddlebags. They would not take any money for the work. As the afternoon went on, Sarah noticed something strange. The regular customers who had stayed were talking with the bikers. At first, they had been nervous. Now they were sharing tables. They were laughing. They were finding out that under the leather and patches, the bikers were just people. A woman named Lisa who came to the diner every Sunday sat with a female biker named Star. They discovered they both had grandchildren the same age. They showed each other pictures on their phones. An old man named Bill, who always sat at the counter, was talking to 3 bikers about fishing. They knew all the same spots on the river. They made plans to go fishing together next weekend. Even the mayor came in. He was nervous at first, but soon he was sitting with Ray and other club leaders. They talked about the town and the roads and the upcoming summer festival. Sarah watched it all with wonder. In one day, her diner had become something new. It was a place where different worlds came together, where people who would never normally meet were finding common ground. Jake came to stand beside her. "Mom," he said in a low voice, "is this good or bad?" Sarah put her arm around her son. "I think it is good, Jake. I think it is very good." Outside, more motorcycles arrived. The day was only half over, and something important was changing in the small town. By evening, most of the bikers had left. They'd promised to come back. They thanked Sarah for the food and for her kindness. Now just Ray and about 20 others remained. They sat at the tables drinking coffee and talking quietly. Sarah counted the money in the cash register. She could not believe how much they had made. More than in a whole week of normal business. The bikers had paid full price and left big tips. Her tip jar was overflowing with bills. "We should close soon," she told Jake. "You have school tomorrow." Jake nodded, but he seemed sad to see the day end. He had made friends with some of the younger bikers. They had shown him their motorcycles and told him stories about riding across the country. "Mom," he said, "they are not what people say they are." Sarah smiled. People are rarely what other people say they are. As they were cleaning up, Ray came to the counter. Behind him stood Wrench and 3 other men. They looked serious. "Sarah," Ray said, "we want to talk to you about something. Can we sit down for a minute?" Sarah felt nervous. What did they want? She nodded, and they all sat at a big table. Jake came over too, standing behind his mother. "First," Ray said, "we want to thank you for today. Not just the food, but for making everyone feel welcome." Sarah smiled. That is what a diner is supposed to do. "Second," Ray continued, "we noticed some things around here that need fixing. Not just the roof. The sign outside is broken. The air conditioner makes a funny noise. The parking lot has big holes." Sarah felt her face get hot. She knew the diner needed work, but repairs cost money, and there was never enough. I am saving up to fix those things, she said. It just takes time. Ray and the other men looked at each other. Then Wrench spoke. I was a contractor for 20 years. I can fix your roof proper, not just patch it. Diesel here was an electrician. He can fix your sign and the wiring. Hammer was in construction. He can fix your parking lot. Sarah shook her head. I cannot afford to pay for all that work. Ray leaned forward. You are not hearing us, Sarah. We want to do these things for you. No charge. Sarah felt tears in her eyes. But why? You do not even know me. Because you stood up for one of our brothers when no one else would, Ray said. The clubs take care of people who take care of us. That is our way. Sarah did not know what to say. The repairs would cost thousands of dollars. It would take her years to save that much. I cannot accept such a big gift, she finally said. Ray smiled. It is not a gift. It is how we pay our debts, and we always pay our debts. Jake stepped forward. Mom, you should let them help. You work so hard. You never ask for help, even when you need it. Sarah looked at her son. His eyes were bright and eager. Then she looked at Ray and the other bikers. Their faces were serious and kind. Okay, she said softly. Thank you. Ray nodded. We will start next weekend. Saturday morning. The clubs will send people who know what they are doing. Good workers. As they got ready to leave, Ray handed Sarah a piece of paper. This is my phone number. If you have any trouble before then, any trouble at all, you call me. Day or night. Sarah looked at the paper. What kind of trouble? Ray's eyes went hard for a moment. The police kind, or any other kind. You are under our protection now. That means something in this town. After they left, Sarah locked the door. The diner was quiet again, but it felt different somehow, like everything had changed in just one day. Jake helped her finish cleaning up. Do you think they will really come back to fix everything? He asked. Sarah thought about Ray's eyes when he talked about debts and protection. Yes, Jake. I think they will be back. I think this is just the beginning. As they drove home, Sarah noticed their neighbors watching from windows and porches. Word had spread about the bikers at the diner. Some people looked worried. Others looked curious. Sarah knew that tomorrow there would be more talk, more questions, maybe even more trouble. But tonight, for the first time in a long time, she felt less alone. The week passed quickly. Sarah heard whispers when she went to the store. She saw people watching her. Some stopped coming to the diner, but others came for the first time, curious about the place where 200 bikers had gathered. Jake told her that kids at school were talking about it. Some thought it was cool. Others said their parents would not let them go to the diner anymore. Are you okay with that? Sarah asked him. With people talking about us. Jake thought for a moment. I think so. At least they know who we are now. On Friday night, Officer Davis came into the diner. He sat at the counter alone. Sarah served him coffee without a word. I hear you have made some new friends, Davis said. His voice was not friendly. I have many friends, Sarah answered. Old and new. Davis stirred his coffee slowly. Those motorcycle clubs are trouble, Ms. Jones. They'd break the law. They sell drugs. They hurt people. Sarah stopped wiping the counter. The people I met were polite and kind. They helped fix my roof. That is how they work, Davis said. They do small favors. They make you think they are good. Then they take over. Soon your nice little diner will be their hangout. Their base. You will not be able to get rid of them. Sarah felt anger rising inside her. They are welcome here as long as they behave well, just like anyone else. Davis stood up. He put money on the counter for his coffee. You are making a mistake, a big one. He leaned closer. We will be watching this place. Any trouble, any little thing, and we will shut you down. Health code, fire code, parking violations. There are many ways to close a business. After he left, Sarah's hands were shaking. She had stood up to the police before, but this felt different. This was a threat, not just against the bikers, but against her business, against her and Jake's future. She almost called Ray that night. His number was by the phone, but she did not. This was her problem. She would handle it herself. Saturday morning came bright and clear. Sarah opened the diner early, not sure what to expect. By 7, the parking lot was full of trucks and vans. Men in work clothes were unloading tools and materials. Ray arrived on his motorcycle. With him was a woman Sarah had not met before. She was older, with long gray hair and a braid. She wore jeans and a leather vest with patches. "Sarah, this is Maria," Ray said. "She is my wife. She wanted to meet you." Maria smiled and held out her hand. "Thank you for standing up for my husband. Not many would do that." The work began quickly. Wrench had a team on the roof, tearing off old shingles. Diesel and his crew were fixing the sign and the wiring. Hammer had men filling holes in the parking lot. Inside, women from the clubs helped serve the regular customers. They wore their vests with patches, but they were friendly and efficient. Sarah worked in the kitchen with Maria, who turned out to be a good cook. "How long have you been with the club?" Sarah asked as they made pancakes side by side. 30 years, Maria said. "Ray and I met when we were young. People think the life is all wild parties and trouble, but for many of us, it is family. The club is there when no one else is." By noon, the diner was busier than ever. People from town came to see what was happening. Many stayed to eat. They watched the bikers working. They saw how hard they worked, how skilled they were. Jake helped wherever he was needed. He held ladders. He carried tools. He served food. The bikers treated him like one of their own. In the afternoon, 2 police cars parked across the street. Officers watched but did not come over. Sarah saw Ray notice them. He spoke quietly to some of the men. The work continued, but now there were always bikers watching the police. As the day went on, Sarah realized something important was happening. Not just the repairs to her diner. Something was changing in the town. People who had never spoken to each other were talking. The wall between the town and the bikers was starting to come down. An old man who had been coming to the diner for years sat with Wrench during lunch. They talked about the best way to fix a roof. A young mother let her children sit on a parked motorcycle while a biker named Bear took their picture. Even the minister from the church down the road came by. He talked with Ray for a long time. When he left, he shook Ray's hand. Sarah watched it all with wonder. One small act of kindness had started something big, something that might change everything. The work continued through the weekend. By Sunday evening, the diner looked better than it had in years. The roof was new. The sign was fixed and shining brightly. The parking lot was smooth. Inside, they had fixed the broken tables, painted the walls, and even put in new lights. Sarah tried to thank them, but words did not seem enough. The repairs would have cost her thousands of dollars that she did not have. Now everything was fixed, and they would not take any money. "We take care of our own," Ray said simply. As the bikers packed up their tools, Sarah and Jake made food for them to take home. Big sandwiches wrapped in paper, cookies in bags. It was a small thing compared to what they had done, but it was what she could offer. When they were gone, Sarah and Jake stood in front of the diner. It looked almost new in the evening light. "What happens now?" Jake asked. Sarah was not sure. Something had started, but she did not know where it would lead. "We keep going," she said, "one day at a time." The next few weeks were strange and wonderful. Business at the diner got better. Many people who had never come before started eating there. They had heard about the bikers helping Sarah, and they were curious. Every few days, bikers would stop by, sometimes alone, sometimes in small groups. They were always polite. They always left good tips. They became part of the normal crowd at the diner, but not everyone was happy about it. Some of the old customers stopped coming. They said they did not feel safe with bikers around. The police drove by more often than before. Officer Davis sometimes parked across the street and just watched. One morning, Sarah came to work and found words painted on the front of the diner. Bad words. Words about her and the bikers. She was washing them off when Ray arrived. He looked at the words without speaking. His face was hard. "I will find out who did this," he said quietly. Sarah shook her head. "No, let it go. Fighting back will only make it worse." Ray helped her wash off the paint. He did not say much, but Sarah could tell he was angry. When he left, he made a call on his phone. Sarah worried about what might happen. That afternoon, Officer Davis came into the diner. He sat at the counter and ordered coffee. "I heard you had some trouble this morning," he said. Sarah poured his coffee. "Nothing I could not handle." Davis nodded slowly. "You know, Miss Jones, you could fix this problem. Tell your biker friends to stay away. Go back to running a normal diner. Things could go back to how they were." Sarah looked him in the eye. "Things are better now. Business is good. I have made new friends. Jake is happier." "Those new friends will bring you trouble," Davis said. "It is already starting. The words on your diner. That is just the beginning." Sarah felt a chill. Something in his voice made her wonder. "How did you know about the words?" "I did not report it." Davis put money on the counter and stood up. "Word gets around." He walked to the door, then turned back. "Think about what I said, before things get worse." After he left, Sarah called Ray. She told him about Davis and his warning, about how he knew about the words on the diner. "I think he might have done it himself," she said, "or knows who did." Ray was quiet for a moment. "That would not surprise me. Some cops do not like us. They try to turn people against us." "What should I do?" Sarah asked. "Nothing," Ray said. "Let us handle it. We will watch the diner at night. No one will paint on your walls again." That night, Sarah could not sleep. She kept thinking about Davis and his warning, about the bikers and how they had changed her life, about Jake and his future. She had always played it safe before, kept to herself, avoided trouble, but now she was in the middle of something bigger than herself. She had chosen a side without even meaning to. As she finally drifted off to sleep, Sarah realized that sometimes in life you had to take a stand, even when it was hard, even when it was scary. Sometimes doing the right thing meant facing the consequences, whatever they might be. 2 days later, Sarah got a letter from the town office. It said her diner needed to be inspected. Health inspection, fire safety, building code. The letter listed many things that might be wrong. If she failed the inspection, the diner could be closed. Sarah knew what it meant. Davis was trying to shut her down. The inspections were scheduled for the following Monday. She had less than a week to get ready. Sarah called Ray. When she told him about the letter, he was quiet for a moment. "This is how they work," he finally said. "They use the rules against people they do not like. But do not worry. We can help." The next day, bikers started showing up at the diner again. But they were not just any bikers. They were specialists. One was a health inspector from a town 50 miles away. Another worked for the fire department in the city. A third was a building contractor who knew all the codes. They went through the diner from top to bottom. They found things that needed to be fixed, small things that an inspector might use to fail the diner. Together with Sarah and Jake, they fixed everything. They cleaned places that had never been cleaned before. They updated the fire extinguishers. They fixed wiring that was not up to code. They worked day and night. By Sunday, the diner was perfect. Every rule had been followed. Every code had been met. The bikers even made a checklist for Sarah to use during the inspection. On Monday morning, the inspectors came. There were 3 of them, with Officer Davis watching from his car across the street. The inspectors were surprised to find Sarah waiting with her own checklist. She showed them everything before they could ask. The health inspector checked the kitchen. Everything was clean. The refrigerators were at the right temperature. The food was stored correctly. The fire inspector checked the exits and extinguishers. All were perfect. The building inspector looked at the wiring, the plumbing, the structure. He could find nothing wrong. After 2 hours, they had to admit that the diner passed all inspections. Sarah thanked them politely and watched them leave. Davis drove away last, his face dark with anger. That night, the diner was full of bikers celebrating the victory. Ray sat at the counter, drinking coffee and smiling. "You beat them at their own game," he said to Sarah. "That does not happen often." Sarah smiled, but she was worried. "They will try something else. Davis will not give up." Ray nodded. "Probably not. But neither will we." A week passed quietly. Business was good. More and more people from town were coming to the diner. They had heard about the inspection and how Sarah had passed. They had seen the bikers helping. Opinions were changing. Jake was different too. He stood taller. He smiled more. He had started talking about college. Before, he had never mentioned it. Sarah knew they could not afford it, but she did not want to discourage him. One night after closing, Sarah sat with Jake counting the day's money. "Mom," Jake said, "I was thinking about going to community college next year, to study business. Maybe I could help run the diner someday." Sarah felt tears in her eyes. For years, she had worried that Jake had no future plans, that he would just drift through life. Now he was talking about college, about a future. "That would be wonderful, Jake," she said. "But college costs money, even community college." Jake nodded. "I know. I can work and save. Maybe get a scholarship." Ray said some of the guys in the club went to college. They said they would help me look into it. Sarah was surprised. "You talked to Ray about college?" Jake smiled. "He asks me about school all the time. He says education is important. He says I am smart and should use my brain." Sarah thought about how wrong she had been about the bikers, about how wrong the whole town had been. These men and women who looked tough on the outside cared about education. They fixed roofs. They helped people who were kind to them. That night, Sarah wrote a letter to the local newspaper. She wrote about what had happened at her diner, about how the bikers had helped her when no one else would, about how they had fixed her roof and helped her pass the inspection, about how they had encouraged Jake to think about college. She wrote about how people should not judge others by how they look or what they wear. She wrote that her diner would always welcome everyone who came in peace, whether they wore a suit or a leather vest. Sarah did not know if the newspaper would print her letter, but she felt better for having written it. Sometimes you had to speak the truth, even if people did not want to hear it. To her surprise, the newspaper printed Sarah's letter. It appeared on the front page with the heading, "Local Diner Owner Speaks Out." People all over town read it. It started conversations. It made people think. Some people were angry. They said the bikers were still dangerous, no matter what Sarah wrote. But others began to question what they had always believed. They began to see the bikers as people, not just as scary men in leather. The diner became busier than ever. People came from other towns to see the place they had read about in the paper. Most days, there was a mix of regular customers and bikers sitting side by side at the tables. Officer Davis did not come around anymore. Sarah heard he had been assigned to a different part of town. The other police officers were polite when they came for coffee. Some even became friendly with the bikers. One evening, Ray came to the diner with a woman Sarah had not seen before. She wore a business suit, not leather. She carried a briefcase. "Sarah, this is Linda," Ray said. "She is a lawyer who works with the motorcycle clubs. She also helps with scholarships for kids who want to go to college." Linda shook Sarah's hand. "Ray has told me about your son, Jake, about how he wants to go to college to study business." They sat at a table, and Linda opened her briefcase. She took out some papers. "The clubs have a scholarship fund," she said, "for children of members and for people who have helped the clubs. Jake qualifies for the second category." Sarah was confused. "There is a scholarship for kids who are not in the clubs." Linda nodded. Many of the members never had a chance at education. They want to help kids who do, kids like Jake. She pushed the papers across the table. It was an application for a full scholarship to the state university. It would cover all of Jake's costs: tuition, books, housing, everything. "This cannot be real," Sarah said. Her hands were shaking. Ray smiled. "It is real. The clubs have more money than people think, and we believe in helping those who help us." Sarah thought about that night when she had stood between Ray and the police. It had been a small thing, just a moment of standing up for what was right. She never expected anything in return. "I do not know what to say," she whispered. "Say yes," Ray said. "Let Jake have this chance. He is a good kid. He deserves it." That night, Sarah told Jake about the scholarship. His eyes filled with tears. He had never thought college was possible. Now it was. "But I would have to leave you," he said. "Who would help at the diner?" Sarah hugged him. "Do not worry about that. The diner will be fine. You need to follow your dreams." In the following months, things settled into a new normal. The diner became known as a place where everyone was welcome. Bikers came regularly, but so did families, workers, and even the mayor. Sarah hired 2 new workers to help at the diner. One was a young woman trying to support her child. The other was an older man who had lost his job. Sarah remembered how it felt to need help. Now she could offer it to others. Jake got accepted to the state university with the scholarship from the motorcycle clubs. He would start in the fall. Sarah was proud and sad at the same time. Her son was growing up, moving on, but that was how it should be. On Jake's last day at the diner before leaving for college, the bikers threw a surprise party. 200 of them came, just like that first Sunday. They filled the parking lot with their motorcycles. They filled the diner with laughter. They had gifts for Jake, books for school, a new laptop, a leather jacket with a special patch that said, "Friend of the Clubs." For Sarah, they had a sign, a beautiful wooden sign for the diner. It showed a motorcycle parked beside a coffee cup. At the bottom were the words, "All are welcome here." As Sarah watched her son surrounded by people who cared about him, she thought about how life can change in a moment. One small act of kindness had led to all of this, one moment of standing up for what was right. Ray came to stand beside her. "You changed things," he said, "not just for you and Jake, for all of us. People in town look at us differently now. They see us as people, not just bikers." Sarah shook her head. "I just did what was right. Anyone would have done the same." Ray smiled. "But they did not. You did. And that made all the difference." Later that night, as Sarah locked up the diner, she looked at the new sign glowing in the light. "All are welcome here." Simple words, but they meant so much. She thought about the journey of the past few months. From a struggling single mom to the owner of a successful diner. From a woman alone to someone with hundreds of friends. From a mother worried about her son's future to knowing he was on his way to college. All because she had stood up for a stranger. All because she had seen past the leather vest and patches to the person underneath. All because she had done what was right, even when it was hard. As Sarah walked to her car, she saw a motorcycle parked in the shadows. A biker sat on it, watching the diner, making sure it was safe. There would always be someone watching now, looking out for her. She was not alone anymore, and she never would be again.